And our mission is to serve as an empowering network for the women of GTV by creating an environment that promotes personal and professional opportunities and supports GTV as an employer of choice for all. So in other words, we try to help you realize success, however you may define it. If you have any ideas, inquiries, would like to get involved, please contact us at win@gtv.com or feel free to visit our staff site. And one more thing that you'll also want to join us for is on the 30th of this month, 2 weeks from today, we're having a WIN networking and celebratory event, and this is our second annual such event where we will be recognizing the winning women of 2017. So we will be having our Winning Women Awards. 5 such extraordinary women will receive their awards, and we'll be having refreshments and networking opportunities. So please feel free to join us then. And now we get to why we're here today, Sharina Jones, and a little bit of introduction. So Sharina was born in Pontiac, Michigan, and spent her early childhood with her parents and siblings, surrounded by a very strong focus on family and spiritual values. But when she was 5 years old, Sharina was a victim of a shooting. That event left her unable to walk for the rest of her life. More importantly, however, it was the beginning of the unveiling of Sharina's purpose to life, to inspire others to reach their greatest potential. Even from such an early age, Sharina was aware that if she was to overcome her tragedy, not by focusing on herself, but really moving forward by helping those around her. With the help and guidance of her family, friends, medical personnel, and others, Sharina was able to adjust to her circumstances, pushing past huge obstacles and limitations, and perform her life's mission. To that end, Sharina has been able to accomplish an impressive list of achievements. On the academic side, she was the first to attend college, and after graduating from undergrad, went on to earn her MBA from Wayne State University in 2008. In 2011, she was crowned Miss Wheelchair Michigan, and then was the first runner-up for Miss Wheelchair America in 2012. She has used her crown as a platform to impact the lives of others in a very positive way. Sharina established the nonprofit organization Think Beyond the Chair to provide hope, healing, and resources to others in the community faced with circumstances like hers. She also started the motivational clothing and accessories company Push Goddess. She currently runs GNS Medical Supplies, which was created to help fund Think Beyond the Chair. Her first book, Life with Push Goddess, is one of her favorite accomplishments. She's currently working on her second book, Not All Goddesses Are Alike. Her long list of accomplishments also include participation in the Detroit Free Press Marathon and tossing out the first ball in a Detroit Tigers opening season game. Without further ado, Sharina Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very relaxed, so if anyone has any questions while I'm speaking, it's not going to mess me up. Just throw them out there. That's perfectly fine for me. I just kind of wanted to give you a background just to start about everything that happened and how my journey of a Push Goddess started. June 25th, 1985. I was a kindergarten graduate. It was 2 days after I walked across that stage and got our little kindergarten diploma, and I was so excited. My sister got a brand new babysitting job, and I was begging my mom, please, please let me go with my sister Kim to babysit. She didn't want to let me go, but after 2 days of convincing, she said, fine, I'll let you go. So I remember that morning. It was just like it was yesterday. We woke up. It was really sunny. My sister said, hurry up, we're going to be late. So I grabbed my little jelly shoes, and I started running after her out the door. We lived at the dead end of a dirt road. And I just remember feeling the rocks on my feet as I was going up that hill as we were on our way to the Smith's house. When we got to the top of the hill, it was asphalt. And I could remember my sister kept saying, stop playing around, because I was playing hot potato with my feet. And we got to the Smith's house. My sister ran into the back to run some bath water for the 4-year-old little girl. And Chris was in his mom's room. And so my sister said, turn on, cartoons. So I turned on the Flintstones, and Chris came out of his mom's room holding a gun and pointing it at me. And he said, run, or I'm going to shoot. So I ran towards my sister. Pop. That was all I heard. Instantly, I fell right to the ground, and my legs started burning. Now, I have to tell you, the Sunday before, my parents were telling me about heaven and hell. It was the first time I actually had heard the word hell, and they explained about the fire and everything. So in my mind, I was in hell. My legs were burning, and I was trying to hold myself up with my little arms. My sister ran in, and she said all I kept saying was, "Don't let him take me. Don't let him take me," because I thought the devil had me. And there's a reason why I thought the devil had me. The day before, I stole a penny candy. My sister took me to the store, and I really wanted this little squirrel candy, if you guys remember the squirrel candies. And so I took one and put it in my pocket. So in my mind, I stole a piece of candy. I did wrong. The devil had me. So my sister picked me up, and she started running me home. Now, it's almost 3/4 of a mile to our house. And no neighbor stepped in. Nobody helped. My sister ran me home with blood running down my pink Oshkosh pants. And, when we got to the house, my dad threw me in the car, took me to the hospital. And from that moment, the only thing I really remember is being on a gurney and hearing the doctor talking to my mom and my dad, saying, "You should say your goodbyes. She's lost so much blood. There's nothing we can do." And then this lady, she was really bright. She had a light about her. She came, she held my hand, and it was like we were running together. We were like running in a field. And there was a little boy next to us. He had really curly hair, and he was running with us. And he was saying, "Run with me, Mommy." And so I thought, well, this must be his mother. So, and it's even to this day, I remember waking up from that dream because I remember her letting my hand go and how sad I felt. And I think it was at that moment that I realized that, the spiritual world, and that, I might have just had an encounter with somebody. So I talked to my parents about it, and they were like, "Don't tell anybody that. That probably didn't happen." I'm like, "No, it happened. It happened." And they said, "Well, explain what she looked like." And I explained what she looked like, and, nobody really took me serious. I was 5 years old. So when I came home, and my parents said, well, first of all, I was in the hospital for 6 months. And when I came home from the hospital, they said, "What can I help you do to transition to your new self?" And, for me, being 5, the most important thing was not to let my mom be sad. My mom was so sad all the time. And so it was just like, well, whatever will make Mommy not sad. And so she's like, "Well, let's start, do you want to play basketball again?" We used to always play basketball. My dad played professional basketball, so that was huge in our house. And I said, "Yeah, and swimming." So my parents, who they were, they took us out in their boat. We lived right on a lake. And the first time I learned how to swim, they threw me off the boat. And they were there, You can do that back in 1985. You can't do that now. So when I got out of the hospital, we came home. They did the same exact thing. They threw me out of the boat, and they said, "Move your arms and swim." And guess what? That's how I learned how to swim all over again without my legs. And so one day I remember coming home, and my dad had all these wheelchairs outside in our driveway. And I'm like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "Well, just go get your clothes on. Let's get ready." And when I came out, all of the neighborhood kids were outside, and we played our first wheelchair basketball, which now there's a commercial, if anybody has seen this commercial. And I'm like, they might have taken that from one of my other talks, because that really happened in my life. So growing up, really I had the support of my family, and I think that was the most important thing, especially for a young child being injured. It's just your support group. My parents made me do the same chores. It took me over an hour to vacuum our house, and they still made me do it, and I'm very thankful to them, because that's why I am so independent, and that's why I grew up believing I could do anything that I wanted to do. So, just like anybody else, I just had a pretty normal life until I was about 14 years old. Actually, it was 9 months before my 14th birthday. My dad got diagnosed with cancer. And, my dad was like my hero. He did everything with me. He's the one who convinced my mom that I could horseback ride, even though she didn't think so. I can, just so you know. So I remember my dad, he came to me and he brought me this cookie, and it was in this plastic bag, and he said, "Why don't you eat the cookie? I need to tell you something." And I thought, no, I'm not going to eat this cookie. What do you have to say? So he said, "I have cancer, but just like you, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to beat the odds and everything." And Unfortunately, that didn't happen. A few months before my 14th birthday, he was admitted back into the hospital, and he wouldn't come home after that. And I remember my birthday, though. My mom had balloons in his hospital room, and we went to visit. And I walked in, and it was orange balloons everywhere. And I was excited because I was like, well, it's still my birthday. My dad's still here. And see, I had been praying for months, especially when the doctor said there was nothing we really would be able to do, that he was going to transition. So I had been praying for months, please let my dad make it to my birthday. Like, it was so important that he made it to my 14th birthday. So that morning, woke up, he was still there. We went to the hospital. There was balloons everywhere. And that was our last full day. So I still get choked up. But it was an amazing birthday. I did like internalize that, I think, and I made it really personal, where I started thinking, why didn't I pray for Christmas? Why didn't I pray for another year? And it really started eating at me, and that was the beginning of my real problems. Being paralyzed wasn't a problem. I made it through that. But unfortunately, not seeing my dad eat for months was the start of my eating disorder. So, and when people say, how can you get over being paralyzed? How can you? And I'm like, that really wasn't the biggest challenge of my life. And it wasn't from a visual, how I felt about my body. It was more of out of a guilt. Like how how could you eat when you couldn't see the person you love so much not eat? And so many people go through this. I actually talk about this with a lot of different groups, and it's really more like of a control, issue. So that was the beginning of that issue, and it stuck with me for years. Well, I graduated from high school, and when I turned 19 years old, I met the love of my life. His name's Grover, and he's the one who really helped me get a handle on that. Just because I think we could be so honest, and so it's like, this is why I'm doing this. It's more about control, and he's like, okay, well, let me help you, and so I was just really honest with him, and I started writing, and that's when I kind of started writing. He's like, if you write everything down, that can help you control it. So he was just showing me a different way to start controlling, your life. So so that was when I was 19 years old. So yes, we've been together for 17 years. Very long time. We traveled. I've been to 17 countries, and a lot of people are like, aren't you afraid they're not accessible? None of them are accessible. Nothing's like the United States. And that doesn't discourage us. We just think about, how are we going to do this when we get there? Luckily, my husband's strong enough. He can carry me. He can put me in taxis and buses or whatever. And then we just adapt, My thing is, not only did I learn how to survive, but then you have to adapt to your situation, and then you actually have to live. So this is kind of why I talk to people when I'm peer mentoring all the time. It's like, the most important part is to live. Like, if you're not happy, then what's the whole point, So I just want people to be happy and to know no matter what your circumstance, you'll be able to get over anything. So I was at Rehab Institute of Michigan, and my friend came to me, and she said, I know this sounds crazy, and I know you're not into beauty or anything, but there's this pageant. It's called Miss Wheelchair America, and they have a Miss Wheelchair Michigan chapter. I think you should run. And I thought, well, that doesn't even sound like me. I don't wear makeup, as you see. I don't really care about clothes and all that stuff. And she's like, no, it's really about, helping people. And she's like, and I just think you would be a great person. So I said, okay, fine. The day before the applications were due, I started filling out mine. I'm kind of last minute. So I filled out my application, turned it in, and couldn't believe that I had got accepted to run. So we get there, and there's all these amazing women, and I thought, well, I don't think I'm going to win this, but I'm just going to go up there and give it all that I got. And everybody's memorizing their scripts, and I thought, nah, I'm going to wing it, I'm just going to be me, because if you don't like me, then, I don't want to fool you and think you have something else. This is it. So, yeah, when they called the name and they said, the next Miss Wheelchair Michigan is Sharina Jones, my mouth dropped, and I remember looking over at my husband and my mom, and they were like, "You won," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I rolled out there, and that was my journey of Miss Wheelchair Michigan. That year was pretty amazing. I got to throw out the first pitch. I got to meet, all these political figures. I got the Courage Award. So yes, it was, let's say, an amazing year. I did 53 events before I actually went to Miss Wheelchair America. And then when we went to Miss Wheelchair America, I met women that were like me. And that is like a very important, it was just a very important week of my life, because I've always felt like I was kind of like an odd person out, even though, we might look similar, but we just don't go through the same issues. So to meet so many women from all these different states that are like you, it really changed my life. So no matter what the outcome was, it was still one of the best weeks of my life. And like you said, I took first runner-up, and had a whole new family. It's called a sisterhood. So I have like 300 more sisters, because every year we go back and we meet the next girls. So that's really, it was an amazing time of my life. But I've totally skipped past my wedding. I guess I should have said that. May 1st, 2010, I did ended up marrying Grover. That morning, I think the one thing that always stays with me was, every little girl wants their dad to walk them down the aisle. And I was contemplating like doing it by myself, walking by myself, or my brother and my mom. I decided to let my brother and my mom walk me down the aisle. I know everybody knew I was going to RIM, Rehab Institute of Michigan, and they thought, well, she's going to walk down the aisle. But little did they know, I actually had been practicing for 9 months to do my first dance. So I stood up and did my first dance. And so that was like really, really shocking to so many people. My sister nearly passed out. People were crying. The only person we told was my mom, because I didn't know if she was going to be okay. Perfect timing, see? So you'll see some goofy photos too. We are a hoot. We just want to have a good time, all of our friends, and it was a great time. But so after my reign as Miss Wheelchair Michigan, I wanted to continue doing all of the things that I was doing. And a few hospitals asked me, could you keep coming back? We have really good turnout, and people are really happy to see you come. And, I was speaking all the time. So I thought, well, yeah, why don't I keep doing this? And my platform was Think Beyond the Chair. So I thought, well, I'll just name my business Think Beyond the Chair. So we did create a nonprofit, and it's called Think Beyond the Chair. And we have done so much. I don't even know where to begin. Every year we host a carnival, an accessible carnival. It's at Beechwood Rec Center in Southfield. This year it is July 22nd. If anybody would like to come out, it's free for everybody. And we are a social organization. We're all about inclusion. We're all about helping people transition from hospital home. There's a lot of agencies that want to take, especially a young person, you want them to make sure they are independent, go home, they're not in a nursing home. I mean, they still have a lot of life ahead of them. And so Party in the Park is something we do every year. We go to the Tigers game every single year. We go to Lions games, comedy shows. We also do peer mentoring, and we're all Christopher Reeve certified. And we also go into the juvie systems, and we talk to young offenders and try to help them see from a different perspective. And, a lot of people ask me, are you angry with Chris? How do you feel towards him? And so it was really strange when I met a young man at the juvie system, and he actually was there because he had shot somebody. And so I said, well, this is my perspective. What's your perspective? And you always have to think about the environment people grow up in. The boy that shot me grew up in a very violent household. There wasn't love like in my family. So, and I think that's why, people feel sorry for me all the time. They're like, I'm so sorry you got shot. I'm so sorry this happened. But it didn't destroy my family. It destroyed his family. You know, he was taken from his parents. His sister was taken from his parents. And, you know, and of course his parents got in trouble. But, I mean, always remember where somebody else comes from, you know. So don't be too quick to judge. But so that's a little bit about Think Beyond the Chair. My husband and I decided, you know, let's start trying to make a family. So we thought that was going to be quick, right? Yeah, it wasn't. Year 3, we decided, you know, nothing was working. We were on fertility meds for, like I said, 3 years. We decided, someone said, you should try to adopt. So after about 8 months, we got a call, and they said, we have this little girl for you. And we were so excited. And we named her Luna. I called her Luna Petuna. And Luna was with us. And I don't know if you guys know, in Michigan, there's a time frame that you have to have them before your adoption is final. So we were 6 days before that when her mother started saying that she wanted to get her back. So, yeah, so that was a fight. And in the end, she did get her daughter back. And me and my husband were just heartbroken. And I think, like when my father passed, I mean, that was like a very sad time in my life. But it was nothing, I don't think, compared to having a child taken away. That was just devastating, not just to me, but to my husband. And so we were thinking, one day we're on the couch, it was 3 days later, we're on the couch, we thought, what now? Like, what are we going to do with ourselves? And I think we were just tired of the phone calls, the flowers, everybody saying, how are you? How are you doing? We weren't doing good, but there was no need to just keep repeating it, you know? So we said, let's go to the Republic of Panama. I don't know why. You know, maybe it was a higher calling, which we believe. But we thought, let's go to the Republic of Panama. We'll take Think Beyond the Chair there. We'll open a chapter, and we'll help people internationally. And we thought, great. We'll do peer mentoring. We'll do adaptive sports. We started looking into adaptive surfing. And a week later, we just up and left. Everybody thought we were crazy, like everybody. They're like, oh God, now they've totally had a nervous breakdown. And my husband went in to quit his job at Chrysler, and they said, you know, why don't we just give you a year off? And he's like, okay, perfect. Then within a year, we'll know what we want to do, if we're going to stay there, what we're going to do. So we got to Panama and started looking around, couldn't find anybody in wheelchairs. And I mean anyone. There were no wheelchairs anywhere. And there's also a language barrier there. So they speak Spanish and Portuguese, like a mixture, which we know Spanish, some Spanish, but no Portuguese at all. So it was very hard communicating. But we did find a few people that helped us that were locals, and they said, you know, we can take you to people with disabilities. So we went to somebody's house, and they're sitting on a couch. And I'm like, well, where's your wheelchair? And they said, we don't have a wheelchair. And so then our brains started turning, like, okay, so now there's a reason why we're here. And so we ended up going to an orphanage in Panama, and we went to the school for special needs. And I'll never forget pulling up to the school for special needs. There was a line of people around the building. I thought, well, is it lunchtime? Is it what's going on? So I asked the headmistress, I said, why, and this is why we're in the bus still. I said, why are all these people here? And she said, they're here because they're hoping you can get them a wheelchair. And again, it was just another time in my life that you have to realize how blessed you are and how much you have and how thankful you are, you know, to come into the environment wherever you're born. If you're here, that, you know, you should be thankful for that. So we got out, and of course there's all these parents that are carrying them because they literally don't have chairs. So the mothers carry the children to school, and that's just common there. So we went in, we spent about a week measuring and getting everybody fitted, and my husband measured them and stuff. And it took us about 14, 15 months to deliver 278 wheelchairs. So, yeah, so I think out of anything we've accomplished, I think that's the one that kind of makes us feel like, go where you're called because you're there for a reason. And we loved Panama so much, we now have citizenship there. So we go back and forth constantly, and we help with, mentoring now and sports now and chairs and everything else. So, so at the end of that year, my husband and I, which it was amazing there also, we also got people to put in accessible bathrooms, handicap parking, ramps everywhere. So if you go to a few cities like Coronado or Panama, or if you go to Las Tablas, those are some accessible cities if you know anybody who needs, accessibility in Panama. So after a year, we decided, well, what are we going to do next? And we thought, well, do you want to go back and keep trying? And we thought, well, we know that we would have to have IVF. So we said, yes, let's go back and we'll do that. So the day we were going to get our IVF done, the actual transplanting in you, I'll never forget. Me and my dad had this number. It's our favorite number. And I don't tell people what it is, but it's a number that we know, my family knows. And when I got to the hospital and they told me my room number, it was that number. And I thought, this is it. This is going to work. And my husband's like, calm down. You always think so positive, just in case it doesn't work. I don't want you to get your hopes up. I'm like, get your hopes up because this is going to work. So, yeah, on the day before Thanksgiving, they called us and they said, you're pregnant. We're like, what? This is amazing. We had 2 embryos that were implanted, and they were both okay at that moment. Well, nothing can be easy for me because, I don't know, it's just not. Yeah. So I ended up getting a condition called placenta previa. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but anytime I moved, I basically bled. So the doctor said, this is not going to work. We want you to terminate your pregnancy. And, something in me just said, I'm not going to do that. Like, it took this long. It was this hard. What's mine is for me, and I just think that I'm not going to do that. Well, one of the babies didn't survive. However, after 7.5 months of bed rest, on July 14th, 2015, I had my son. So now that date is the most important date of my life. I no longer, let my life revolve around June 25th. Actually, a week ago, someone asked me what my injury date was, and I actually forgot. It was the 25th. I'm like, it's June, that's right, the 25th. Because it doesn't matter that now, So Grover Cleveland Jones IV was born on July 14th, and he is the apple of our eye, and he has the prettiest green little eyes. He has my mom's eyes. So, so we're always thinking, what are we gonna do next? What are we gonna do next? And so, Think Beyond the Chair, we had a Christmas program. So if you were disabled, or if you had disabled children, and you needed help for Christmas, you could apply for this program. It was surprising how many people needed help for Christmas. It was surprising. So we actually had only prepared for about 20 kids. We had the budget for about 20 children. Well, we had about 45 families. And we started going to sponsors, and we started going to people where we used their supplies. And we were like, can you donate? Can you donate? And it was weird that a lot of people just didn't want to help out. And me and my husband, we've been funding Think Beyond the Chair for, 5-6 years out of our own pockets. We had no problem doing it. But when you ask people for little, can we get $1,000 here? This could help, 5 families. And people said no. I just started thinking, okay, what can we do to help fund Think Beyond the Chair? So we started GNS Medical Supplies. And everybody's like, does that mean Grover and Sharina? It actually doesn't. It means gaining new self. Because after you're injured, a lot of people just don't know who they are. And it's really a gaining of a new awareness of a new self. And so that's kind of how GNS got started. So it started with just like board members. We're like, hey, let's just order our own supplies. And then we started talking to other people, and they're like, hey, can I order your supplies? We're like, yeah. And just donate everything, think beyond that chair. And yeah, that turned so big that our attorney and our accountant said, you're officially a business and you need to, be a business. So that's what we did, and we officially started December 15th of last year. And we have grown so much. We thought it was going to be about 2 or 3 people. We have 12 employees now. And yeah, like I was telling you, we've already passed the break-even point. So we are doing great, and we're going to have so many more programs this year for Think Beyond the Chair and our Give Back program. So GNS, all of our clients are informed of this Give Back program. So you can get grants for wheelchairs, hand cycles, ramps, whatever will help you improve your quality of life. We have grants for, so people, can now do that because of this. And I talk about this all the time about supporting organizations that support you in the community that you're in. We have the power as purchasers to do that. So just think about that next time you're purchasing something. Just a little bit of power that you have. But does anybody have any questions? I feel like yeah, sure.
Just Panama, Sharina, have you decided to go further than Panama to other region? Like, there are so many countries, you took that to Panama, even though with the language barrier, you can go wherever,
Absolutely. We've been invited to several different countries. Actually, I think we might go to Burkina Faso, West Africa. We have an organization that keeps inviting us out, and I think that's where we're going to go next. That definitely will be after we build an accessible orphanage in Panama. So right now, all the kids in orphanage, if you're in a chair, you can't get down into the schoolroom, and so they just don't go to school. And so we kind of made that our passion right now. So we're actually getting a team together. We're hoping to go in November to get this going. GNS is going to be, of course, funding it. And then we have a few more sponsors that's going to help that. But right now we just don't have all the manpower. So we're going to take a week and we're going to do 2 sections for people to come in and help us build that. But yeah, we're always open to new areas. People contact us all the time. So do you have an area you'd like to suggest? I know, it's hard. It's like once you see that, I tell this to people, once you actually see it, it will change you forever. Like you can't go back to being who you are and just, I'm ashamed to say I used to spend hundreds of dollars on purses. I just can't do it anymore, because that could be 2 wheelchairs for somebody. So when you think like that, it's like, there has to be, something that we all can do. And I just feel like if everybody puts a little bit in, the world would be a better place, and we can really overcome a lot of things. But yeah, Panama, our year in Panama, we got citizenship because, we loved it there, and we know that we can go back and we can do so much more. And now we're just working on getting it for my son. So eventually I think we will be there. I think that might be our home until the next home, until the next project, the next home, or whatever. We're kind of wanderers. We like to travel, so yeah. Sure.
You are just blowing me away as a human. But I just keep having a question. How did you meet Grover?
Okay. This is recorded, so I'm going to have to Okay, I'm sure you guys had the strip down here. Like, okay, in Flint, there was like the strip where everybody would cruise up and down and everything. Well, Grover had just graduated from GMI at the time. It's now Kettering University. And he saw me on the strip, and he kept trying to get my attention. And I kept, saying, no, no, no. And then finally, we pulled over, and he pulled into somebody's grass. And I was thinking, that's so badass. Like, I've always played it safe my whole life, But I just loved him. And then he said, my name's Grover. And I was like, Red Rover, send Grover right over. And we really haven't been apart since then. Yep.
Did he know that you were disabled when he pulled up in the car?
Funny story. So, okay, so I don't know if everybody asked, but she wanted to know if Grover knew if I was disabled when he met me. He didn't, because I was driving and he was driving. He literally came over to my car. But, young Sharina, she was just like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to see how his reaction is, if he calls me and if we go on a date. So he called, and I invited him over to my house, and he knocked on the door, and I remember opening the door, and he kind of was looking straight, and then he looks down, and then he said, is that permanent? I was like, yeah. He was like, all right, and he just literally walked in, and that was it. And then, from there, it's just, he didn't really care, but come to find out, his mother is a special needs teacher. Kind of like he grew up around people in chairs, and it just didn't bother him, and didn't bother him at all. That's why I kind of talk to people like, a lot of people think, I'm in a chair, I'm disabled, I'm never going to beat anybody. Really, if you don't meet somebody, it's usually because of your mentality and that energy that you put out there. When I do a lot of talks, I talk about the power of positive thinking and what the energy is that you put out there. So I always put out good energy. I always have positive people around me, because just like anybody, we all have bad days. But, it's the people that surround us that kind of pick us up. So if you ever follow me and you see that I say, oh, I'm having a para day, that just means I'm having a horrible, horrible day. And then, I have such great friends and support. I have people who don't even know me that sends me things like, little, messages like, I hope you're having a better day, whatever. So it's really important to surround yourself with those positive people and to, and give off really good energy. But you had a question?
Yeah, do you still find time to mentor, and do you have people that you've mentored that have gone on to mentor themselves?
Absolutely. So Think Beyond the Chair, we started with 3 mentors, and I think we have about 40 now. And those mentors that we've brought in were people who were mentored too. So it's kind of the transition. It's like, yeah, we're going to mentor you, and then they literally they want to join. We don't ever say, hey, you have to do this. They just join and they stay within the organization, and yeah. And I still do mentor, all the time. Yeah, all the time. And I do a lot more like in different states now as well, because the Christopher Reeves Foundation will actually call me saying, hey, I have this person, could you please mentor you, or somebody saw your blog. I also blog, so if you go to pushgoddess.com, you can see my blogs and things like that. And they say, do you mind talking to her? A lot of people want to know about getting married, relationship. It's not about the disability, it's about how to live with it. So how to have babies, and how do you do this, and how do you handle your son. So little Grover is now 20 months, and he's just running everywhere. And how do I handle him? Those little leashes. So when little Grover and I go by ourselves, I put the little leash on him, or I strap him with a seatbelt to me. I mean, people get so nervous, but it's like, I think no parent, especially the first time you're a parent, knows anything. It's kind of like figuring it out. So I'm just figuring it out, I have a car seat that turns. You might have seen me on the news about the baby carrier. There was a high school student that created a baby carrier for me that's attached to my wheelchair. It never went into production because there were some mechanical issues with it, safety-wise. So I ended up just carrying my son in one of the carriers, and now he loves to stand on my foot plate and just ride around. So if you see us in Meyer, he's probably standing on my foot plate or riding around. So I mean, it's just really adapting to your situation and just, living with it. I have friends that don't have arms and they use their feet to take care of their child. I have friends who are quads who are parents. It's, really, doesn't matter your situation. If you have the mentality and the drive to see past it, you can accomplish anything.
Where do you think your mentality came from? Do you think it came from your parents and how they handled the situation, or do you think you kind of just had that already instilled in you, or?
I think both. I think my parents, that was a huge, they're a huge reason to who I am. And, you know, I would hate cleaning when I was younger, and I thought it was so unfair. Like, I'm in this wheelchair, and now you're going to make me vacuum, even though you know it takes me 10 times longer to vacuum. Like, why are you making me vacuum? But I'm glad they did, because when I turned 18, I moved out on my own. I didn't have to worry about, you know, I had friends who were like, oh, you want to be a roommate? No, I don't. I'm going to live on my own. I can vacuum myself, take my trash out, do my bed. Like, I could do everything on my own, you know. And I think them pushing me, I think that was why I am who I am. My dad was always very positive too, and he would run like inner city basketball camps, and so he always cared about people who were less fortunate. And so I think I have that drive from him too. And he's always trying to save the world, kind of like me. Like, I feel like the day I stop trying to save the world is probably the day I'm gonna transition. Like, really, I feel like that's who I am, and that's why I'm here. So, yep. Any other questions?
So it sounds like you have a lot of influence, obviously, from your family and things like that. Do you also have a strong spiritual life? Like, what does, your faith or anything like that?
Absolutely. I should have probably finished about, you remember I was telling you when I got shot, that bright person that I saw? Years later, when my dad was passing, we were going through family photos. I never met my grandmother, never seen a picture of her, nothing. When I saw a picture of his mother, my dad's mother, I'm like, that was the lady who was there the day I got shot. And everybody, I think, just got a chill came over them. They were like, that's your grandma. That was Big Ma, what we called Big Ma. And I had never seen her. So, yeah, so, I mean, and I'm a very spiritual person. And that's what drives me. And I just feel like, you know, you have to follow your calling. And just like when I was pregnant and they said, you know, we want you to terminate. And I'm like, absolutely not. If I ever had the sign, like, God gave me the sign, like, this is, you know, even if that would have taken me out, I would have been okay with it, because that was my journey. So I kind of like, you know, I just accept things, and I wasn't willing to let something so precious go, though. Yeah.
Did you figure out who the little boy was?
I think the little boy is my son. It's so funny because that little boy was saying, you know, run, mommy, run. And I thought he was talking to her, but I think it was probably my son, because when I was pregnant, everybody told me I was going to have a girl. I knew I was going to have a girl. I had her name picked out and everything. I'm like, this is going to be a little girl. And then when they said it was a little boy, I was like, what? This is crazy, you know? He had the curliest hair when he was born, and yeah,
The way you described him, that's what I thought too.
yeah, I know. So it's like, it's really strange. Like, yeah. Any other questions?
I guess what are these photos?
This is them getting new beds. You might have seen in Panama, you could see some beds didn't even have mattresses on them. And this is the teachers, and my husband's on the left. And this was the orphanage. And you could see it's not accessible. There's steps to get in an orphanage. We only had a few pictures where the children, the parents would let us use their faces. And since this was going to go public, I wasn't going to include the other children. But yeah, see, there's no mattresses on some of them, and some of the cribs, like there wasn't a mattress. It was like just a sheet they put down. They had crazy animals in restaurants there, monkeys and stuff. And so I thought, well, let me just throw one of those pictures in too. Yeah, and then they have a zoo also in Panama that you could like put your finger through the gate. Like, you know, it was like a chain linked fence that would keep in lynx and, you know, and huge cats. And yeah, it was very, very strange. And the one thing about the zoo, I just have to tell you, this is kind of funny. My husband and I walked into where all the spiders and everything were, and the reptiles. And then my husband said, and I'm like, oh, this frog is so beautiful. It was like a blue. And I'm like, where's it from? Oh, Republic of Panama. Oh, so we could like, it basically went outside, found a frog, and put it in there too. And then he said, do you notice that some of the crickets are on the outside? And I'm sure they fed them in the inside. And I'm like, oh, let's go. That was me happy, pregnant. Yeah, so, and that was our first picture. Yeah. So, Well, that's kind of all I have to say. If nobody else has any questions, if you ask me a question, I brought you a book. So hopefully I have enough books for as many people ask questions. I didn't expect that many. So thank you. Oh. No, not really. Maybe. We've met a few politicians there that, and a few people of influence, and they've helped us get the chairs. It's a little bit different than here, especially when you're bringing things in and paying fees and things like that, going through customs and stuff. So like somebody wanted one of the wheelchairs, and you have to kind of not. I wouldn't use the word bribe because that is a common practice in their country. But when people said, "Why would I let you bring all these wheelchairs when I have a sister who needs one?" So it's like, okay, go ahead and take one. There was a few that were extra anyway, but it's just that lets you know like the life that people are living there, and and why everybody needs to help. And I never get mad at people because people in our group were really angry, like, how could you take some of these wheelchairs from some of these kids? And it's like, because his own loved one doesn't have one, and they really need one too. So always think about where people are coming from. In Panama. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to know, for speaking engagements and events and stuff, how do you keep like the momentum going, getting the word out, and reaching new people with your story and your mission of getting them to help out with things?
I'm very well known in our community. So it's actually me trying to keep up with the speaking engagements. I am constantly asked to speak places, and other people in our organization are asked all the time. We do get a lot of volunteers for all of our events here, except the international one. So it's people actually having time to go to Panama, taking time off their, out of their work life and their family life. Like, that's the problem that we're having right now. But we do have people in Panama that help us as well. So we do have a group of people there as well. And there was an organization called Volunteers in Panama. And there was a picture of Denise McDonald. She was the owner of that organization. She passed 2 years ago. But she would help get volunteers from there and help also with funding. And because you have to understand, at the beginning of the first 5 years, my husband and I literally footed the bill for everything for Think Beyond the Chair. We had some sponsors that would help with the carnival, but everything else we helped, So now that we have GNS, we're very happy, so that will help with more programs and more events and things like that for people.
Have you ever had a conversation with Mitchell? Because he's got an organization that they go to Haiti and have built an orphanage there and done
Really?
a lot there. Yeah, so that I feel like is something, like, he is very involved in programs like that, and might be worthwhile, like, reaching out.
Sure. Maybe I'll do that.
To 760,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Oh, good.
Where did the name Push Goddess come from?
Okay, Push Goddess, and you can read this in the book, but when I was a little girl, my dad used to say, I'd be looking in the mirror and getting ready, and he'd be like, you are a princess. I'm like, I don't want to be a princess. He's like, fine, you are a queen. I was like, I don't want to be a queen, And I'm like, I want to be a goddess because everybody loves goddesses, In my mind, I was like, that's a goddess, And nobody hates goddesses. Queens can be bad, but in my mind, I was like, a goddess would never be bad. And so that's kind of how I literally woke up, and I would tell myself every morning, you are a goddess, you are a goddess. So that's kind of how the whole Push Goddess came about. Yeah. So.
And if anyone wanted to help, like anyone here, is there a website?
Yeah, so Think Beyond the Chair, it's thinkbeyondthechair.org. And I do have some cards and some pamphlets and things over there, and you can take pens. And if you want to help out with any events, our events are listed. Donations we take right on there. And then if you want to follow blogs and stuff, pushgoddess.com is my Push Goddess brand, and then GNS Medical, you can go to gnsmedical.com. So. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.